94% of the school shooters of the last 12 years posted online what they were going to do before they did it. This is called leakage. Another factor that came out in recent studies is there's a common thread of school shooters that somewhere in their upbringing, they were abused, somewhere in the home. So when we talk about mental health and where this comes out at, when they're children, they become rewired and they can't fit into societal norms when it comes to a population in the school. So then they get picked on, they get teased, they get bullied, they get ostracized. What they do is lash out and want to make people scared of them. So this feeling manifests into anger and then it manifests into action. It's about leakage and the mental health of our students. Once we capture that and train everybody, we're going to be able to stop school shootings.
Hello and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm also the founder of the mothership website of this podcast, and that's called the Goodness Exchange. Today's guest is someone who refuses to sit on the sidelines when it comes to protecting kids in the digital age. Detective Rich Wistocki is a retired law enforcement officer with over 30 years of experience, including 22 years on the SWAT team, 22 years in cybercrime detective work. We recently had him on the podcast to talk about his extraordinary record with stopping cybercrime involving children. It's a hard episode for me to record and listen to, but it's one of the ones I'm most proudest of because, folks, we are celebrating the work and the ingenuity and the insights of someone who has changed countless lives and is willing to do some of the hardest things on the planet, looking after other people's children's and their safety. Rich is not just a crime fighter. He's a teacher. He's a trainer. He's a relentless advocate for prevention, bringing his mix of common sense, street smarts, tech expertise, and heartfelt commitment to protecting kids wherever he goes. This conversation you will not forget. And here's why we're going to talk to Rich a second time. Because his other expertise, besides stopping cyber crimes against children, is in stopping school shootings. He and his team stopped 52 school shootings in 2024, and they have stopped 42 this year so far in 2025. Welcome, Detective Rich Wistocki.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, I'm telling you, my husband and I were traveling when we were working with my producer to edit the first episode that we did. And my husband turned to me, we were riding along in the car, and he said, Linda, that's the most important thing you've ever done, is got the word out to parents and grandparents about what they need to know about cybercrime against kids. Yes. Because your whole world seems so common sense to me, and we just don't know what you know, and we need to.
Yeah.
So we're going to take care of some of that today. Okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to do this absolutely real, folks, because I had planned to chit chat with and reconnect with Rich for about an hour, and then we were going to record about this whole other part of his work with school shootings. And don't you know, we hopped on a Zoom just moments ago, and he has a real life example that just happened today. So
number one for the school year.
Yeah. The day of this recording is August 13th. I forgot that, much of the world, my kids are in their 20s now. And I forgot that in much of the world, mid-August is the time when schools start. Yep. And here we are, day one. He's already got a story for us. And I think what we're going to do, we're just going to keep it real. We're going to still get to all my questions because there's some really important themes in there. Rich has had a look at them, and we're going to use this real life example that just happened today and share it with you guys and teach everybody about how we can all be more proactive and be part of the solutions in these terrible situations. Okay, so Rich, set us up exactly like you did when I just called you about 15 minutes ago.
So let's start from the beginning on what the studies show and all of this. So going back to 2021, the United States Secret Service, Dr. Lena Al-Thari, very well known in the law enforcement community, had completed her threat assessment survey study This threat assessment survey study research concluded that over the past 12 years, 94% of the school shooters of the last 12 years posted online what they were going to do before they did it. This is called leakage, okay? Another factor that came out in recent studies is there's a common thread of school shooters that somewhere in their upbringing, they were sexually abused or physically abused or mentally abused or emotionally abused, somewhere in the home. That is the commonality, okay? So when we talk about mental health and where this comes out at, when they're children, they become rewired, right? And they can't fit into societal norms when it comes to a population in the school. So then they get picked on, they get teased, they get bullied, they get beat up, they get ostracized. What they do is they lash out and want to make people scared of them. So this feeling manifests into anger, and then it manifests into action.
What I wanted to chime in here about, and not to stop your rhythm, is that it seems like after the fact with school shootings, people come out of the woodwork saying, yeah, I told people
leakage.
to search his backpack that day.
Let the leakage begin.
Yeah, I saw, and everybody is doing it after the fact.
Right.
And I thought, and I give people a break and say, well, maybe that person is the only thought that they were the only person he said anything weird in front of, or so they didn't want to be alone. But almost all these people have a pattern that's just like buckshot of putting out signs of their troubles, right?
Right.
And so what you're advocating is a system so that things get reported enough to bring it to the next level. And is the next level a search warrant for the house? Because that's where you're going to find out whether it was all smoke and mirrors.
You're going to know in phase 2 once you do the search warrant on the social network. You're going to find all their messages, all their deepest, darkest secrets and planning and intent.
Okay, so phase 1 is getting people to do the reporting. Phase 2 is
phase 1 is the mental health of the student making the threat.
Okay,
we can identify them within 2 hours.
Okay, and then phase 2 is
the search warrant on their social network. They find their deepest, darkest secrets and planning.
Okay,
and once that's positive, then we go to step 3, phase 3. That's a search warrant on their residence.
Okay. All right. So let's reel it back in far enough to now tell us about what happened to you this morning.
Yes. So I am teaching at one of my Catholic schools. I do faculty trainings before school starts at many of my schools across the country. And I show them, who they call if there's sexual or physical abuse. I remind them about the cyber tip line if it's online abuse. I show them the 5 pieces of evidence that they need to get from a student. While we talk about predators, we talk about the largest predator site in the world right now, which is Roblox. So I just kind of update them on AI stuff that's happening and things like that. Well, while I'm teaching, and this is what I tell all of my police officers. So I train about 4,000 school resource officers across the country a year, right? And so what I tell them, I said, look, I am available to you 24/7. They scan my QR code and I'm available to you 24/7, 365. But when you call me, I'm probably going to be teaching somewhere. So if you want my immediate help, you have to be willing to go on speakerphone on my phone and tell my entire class what your situation is. So then we go into a live training session as it's happening. So this morning at 10 o'clock, I get a call from actually it was like 8:30. I get a call from one of my SROs in Southern Illinois, and he goes, "Rich, my school just got threat bombed. I don't know if it's swatting. We already called the dogs in. We searched the entire school. We didn't see no bombs. We put everybody on lockdown. We did the search. There's nothing there. So now I'm doing the investigation part." I said, "Okay, bro, buckle up. What's step 1?" And when my SROs call me, I don't give them the answer. I have them work through the problem so the entire class can work through the problem at the same time. Okay.
I just got goosebumps.
So yeah, there's no training like live training, right?
No.
So I say, what's your first step? He goes, well, I got this number, and he said he planted 2 bombs in the school. I say, okay, find the number. Yep. Okay, what are you going to run it in? And we have this thing called CellHawk. We run it in CellHawk. CellHawk tells him it's an app. Okay, it's an app called Burner. It's a brand I never heard of it before. It just got released, and it's designed by a company called Ad Hoc. So here's what people have to understand about people making phone calls. These apps, there's 5 of them now. There was 4, now there's 5. Let me rattle them off for you. The biggest problem is a company called Text Now. Kids use it and they sell themselves as untraceable anonymous text messages. Well, everything is traceable, right? Text Now. Second company is Pinger, Pinger. Third company is Google Voice. Fourth company is Text Me Now. And now this new company called Burner. These are voice over IPs. Okay. So let me just ask you a question. Where do we go to download apps, Linda?
I go to the Apple Store.
Yeah, App Store, right? Or if you have an Android, you go to Google Play.
Okay.
So in order to download this app, what do you have to have in the middle? What connects you to the App Store? App Store is up here. Your phone is down here. What connects you?
Well, I'm drawing the
cloud.
blank. Okay, the cloud. Sure.
You have to have an account.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
And your cloud has to recognize your device.
Correct. Right.
So everybody in your cloud, boom, 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 has a device.
Right.
Well, those devices have to be activated, right? So all he's got to do is say, hey, Burner, who used this number on this date and time zone? They can say it's this iCloud with this device. So that's how easy it is. So what happens is there's a federal law called the ECPA, the Electronics Communications Privacy Act. Okay? What ECPA says is that local law enforcement can obtain 4 pieces of information, 4 ways they can get information out of any internet company in the United States. Number 1, we have to do a preservation. This preserves the data for 90 days. So if somebody tries to delete it, it doesn't matter. We still have it. Number 2, they can do a subpoena. We can only ask for non-content related information in a subpoena. Let me go through those real quick. Number 1, subscriber information with financial data. Number 2, emails associated to the account. Number 3, phone numbers associated to the account. Number 4, devices connecting to the account. And that's where people, they think they're slick when they say, well, I'm going to get a burner phone so nobody can track me. So here's what the dummies do. They get their burner phone, right? They say, I'm going to use the burner phone. Now nobody's going to find me. But they put their Snapchat on their burner phone. I don't care what phone they use. I'm going to track the devices that are connected to their social network. So the social network will tell me every single device that they have, right? So devices connecting. And here's a big mistake that detectives make if they've never been cyber trained. When a threat comes into their school, they'll say, give me the IP that made the threat. That's wrong. They're not going to get anything because all these kids are using VPNs, virtual private networks, where they cannot be traced. If you say, give me the IP that made the threat, they're never going to find it. You have to ask for any and all IPs for as long as the account has existed. Any and all IPs for as long as the account has existed. This way, you're going to get all their login and logouts, right? So take a look at your bottom tray on your computer. See all the tools you need to do this podcast? When you fire up your computer, all these tools come up, right? So when you connect to the internet, bam, all your tools capture that original IP. Then if you want to do nefarious things, or if you have Norton where it turns your VPN on in about 10 minutes, then you're going to turn on your VPN. Nobody can find you. But it doesn't matter because we ask for any and all IPs for as long as the account has existed. So when you see the IP logs tell a story. When you look at IPs and you run them in this other tool that we have, it's going to say France, Belgium, Italy, China, Hartford, Connecticut, France, Germany, Spain, Belgium, Hartford, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. We're going after Hartford, Connecticut because that's the residential IP. So any and all IPs for as long as the account existed, any and all something called port source. It has to do with cell towers. Any and all other accounts associated to this account. We talked in the last session about predators using 10, 20, 30 accounts to talk to a victim. And then the victim thinks that this person's stalking them because they know so much information, where the victim has been talking to 10 different accounts, but it's the same guy, right? We talked about that. So any and all accounts. And then finally, the UDID or the Apple ID. And that's where this case comes into play. So this new company, Burner, only captures Apple ID information. So that's okay. That's a bonus. So my detective, my SRO, does a preservation to Burner, gets the Apple ID in the first hour. Now that it's an Apple ID, he does preservation and does an exit to Apple. Apple takes a little longer. So in 2 hours, he was able to find out who this kid was. He was a brand new kid. First day of school, he was expelled from his last school, and now he's in an alternative school. On the first day of school, on the way to school, he didn't want to go, so he bomb threat the school. And now, right now, as we speak, I just got the text message, he's in custody.
So there's a whole lot of questions here, but one of them is that this kid has somehow arrived at the conclusion that this behavior is a way to get out of going to school. As simple as mundane as going to school is, he doesn't realize the magnitude of this behavior.
No.
He's just clueless about that.
Yeah.
Or he does and he doesn't care. So maybe it's
right.
that.
And this
too.
is not the first time he's done this.
Right. So then how do we tease apart? It's so easy now that these things are so common to say, did he even have a real bomb, or was it all smoke and mirrors? And how much should we care?
Yeah. So another thing that Dr. Althari says is that many schools just would blow off the threat. He didn't mean it. So in my classes, I take that and I say, you cannot say he was just kidding, because every school shooter, when confronted by law enforcement, say that they were just kidding. And what happens when authority confronts a kid, here's the psychology of it. When they confront him, let's say this has happened to Nicholas Cruz, because I trained those Broward County sheriffs after the fact, of course. And they said, we went to his house, Rich, and we asked him, you're showing all these weapons on your social media. Do you have weapons in your house? No. Do you mind if we come check? No. You got a search warrant? No. Then you ain't coming in. So what I tell my officers, look, this should show you, when you have proof that there's weapons there, don't you dare go to that house without a search warrant. Because a lot of SROs and a lot of police officers, they just don't want to do the paperwork, or they've never been experienced on how to do the paperwork. So you know what I do? I have a hidden page in my site that they put a code in, and I pre-wrote all their search warrants for them. So I take the guessing out of it. They just got to plug in their data and off they go. So I do all the hard lifting for them, and there's no guessing. They just do it. And then they find out who the kid is, and it's just, because it's a mental health issue, that's where we have to go. So when these potential school shooters are confronted with the police and they say, no, you got a search warrant, you come to my house, and they leave with their tail between their legs, it fuels their desire to continue their work. Because I am more powerful than the FBI. I'm more powerful than local law enforcement. I can continue to plan and get back at the people that have harmed me. That's their psychological thought process. And so another failure on the part of why school shootings happen is that you have lack of training to our students. There's this whole campaign, and for your viewers, there's an organization called the I Love You Guys Foundation. Is John Michael and Chief DeAndrea. And when Chief DeAndrea was in Colorado, his daughter was in the school. The chief's daughter was in the school while the school shooting was happening. So they talk about, and now he's got his daughter in this roadshow when they go to conferences. So during the summer, there's 12 weeks, right? every week I'm in a different state presenting my findings and presenting my tools to present school shootings. So they have a program called the I Love You Guys Foundation. Now, John Michael's daughter was in one of the shootings. I think it was in Columbine. And that was the last text his daughter sent to him before she was murdered in that shooting. And so he created a non-for-profit called the I Love You Guys Foundation. And what they do is they show students and faculty how to show kids how to report leakage. Their motto, see something, say something, and I see these people all the time, right? I smoke cigars with them, we talk and we talk about what each other's doing, everything. And so I told both of them, I said, look, guys, I said, I'm going to carry your message a step further. It's not enough to teach kids, hear something, say something. We need to tell them, see something, say something, report something. And that goes back to those 5 pieces of evidence that we talked about in the previous podcast, right?
If you have to give us the 5 things.
Yeah.
Let's not make people work for it.
Okay. So the first thing we have to teach our students, staff, and law enforcement is that the first thing you have to have is screen captures of everything. The chat, the profile, what she said, what he said, the pictures, the videos. Screen capture everything. Print it out and make it a file somewhere. The second thing I need, did you remember me sending you that flow chart, Linda?
Yes.
So it's in the green box
Right.
in the flow chart on the bottom. Okay.
Right.
Number 2, I need a screen capture of the user ID's profile or a screen capture of the fake phone number that was texting or the email address or the gamer tag. I need a screen capture just of that. Print it out, make it a file.
Okay, can I ask you something as I go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
when I want to screenshot something, like to capture it forever, just in case, if it seems like creepy, I use a snipping tool, and I'll take a picture of pretty much my whole screen, so it shows the date and time down in the bottom right corner.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about. Just get out a snipping tool and snip it. Okay, the whole thing,
or just screenshot
or screenshot on your phone.
phone.
Yes.
Yeah. So number 3, and this is where some people have a problem with it, but I work in the real life and I don't care what your feelings are. So if you want law enforcement to find out who this is, do not report it to the abuse section of the social network. Do not report it. Because if it violates their terms of service, they may delete the account. If they do that before we did preservation and search warrant, when we do the search warrant, it's going to be gone. We lost it.
This is so big.
Yeah.
That's what most angry parents would do. Right.
Yes. And that's what most SROs and school officials tell their people to do. Just report to the social network. They'll take care of everything. No, they won't.
Okay.
So number 4, I need a detailed type statement as to what happened and how it made you feel. The reason why we want that is because those portals again, right? So when we sign into our law enforcement portal, we have to prove to the people at that company, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, that this happened. So we're going to upload the threat. We're going to upload the screen name. We're going to upload that statement so they know how serious this is. Okay? So that's number 4. Number 5, I need printouts of everything that I just said we needed. The screen captures, the user IDs, the statement. I need that all printed out. And I need everything saved on a flash drive. Not 1 flash drive, 2 flash drives. Sometimes cops lose stuff, just saying. So keep one as backup. So when you hand it to the police, you need to have all 5 things in printed form and all 5 things in a digital form.
All right. And I'm going to put this, as I said, this list will be on the Goodness Exchange in an article accompanying this conversation. And now that I've heard it the second time, it doesn't sound so daunting. It sounded daunting the first time, but now that I've heard it the second time, it doesn't.
Yeah. So we need to be teaching our students, see something, say something, report something. We teach them the 5 pieces of evidence that you need to report to law enforcement. The second problem was, like when I start my class, so this class, it's a 3-day class that I've created. And what I did was I took all of my child exploitation experience and I plugged it into the schools and SROs. Okay.
SROs are?
School resource officers.
Got it.
So the breakdown in Dr. Altamari's study was that a lot of times school administration won't tell the law enforcement officer or the SRO in their schools that a threat has happened because they don't want press releases, they don't want arrests, and in their simple minds, they think about, well, it's not a police matter yet. We'll just talk to the kid. That's not a good, we have Olathe, Kansas, and I can explain to you what happened there. But the first question that I ask to prove Dr. Althari's hypothesis, right, her theory, is that I say, okay, SROs, how many of you are sick and tired of not being called until things go sideways when a threat happens to your school? All of them raise their hands.
These are police officers that are in the schools.
In the schools.
Commonly. Okay.
Yes. So I said, keep your hands up. Then I look at the school official. I say, school officials, school administration, see those hands up? If you continue to lock your SRO out of what's happening in your school, you are going to get kids killed. And so it's like, so it's very important for me to put everybody on the same page. Okay. Everybody has to work in lockstep when threats happen in schools. Okay. You can't ignore it. And a lot of times they'll feel sorry for some of the kids who maybe have mental illness. Okay. But the focus of this 3-day class is to provide the mental health help to the student that's lashing out with these threats.
Okay. And let's just to introduce a little compassion here for anybody who would find it hard to get some right now. That's what this is. Children are not built like this. They become this way because of the things they've seen and the things that have been done in front of them or to them. I mean, you and I are talking here from the ultimate place of compassion in our hearts for the 4-year-olds who saw something they shouldn't or what have you. You know, I just want to remind folks that the purpose of this podcast is to celebrate the knowledge and the heroism that Rich and all his folks are exemplifying, but also to get the word out so we can talk plainly about the fact that there is mental health in 12-year-olds and 15-year-olds issues that cause them to do the most extraordinarily terrifying things because they have been primed. That pump has been primed in them early in life.
Right. So the focus of this class, there's 3 phases of this class. If anybody asks, I tell my students, if anybody asks what's this class is about, it is not a threat assessment class. Schools have had it up to here with threat assessment classes. Okay. So this is not that. This is how to handle threats that come into your school by students who are suffering from mental health. So that's the first priority. And when we catch them within 2 hours, I'll explain that process. Once a threat comes out, we can find out who they are within 2 hours. Okay. To give them the mental health help they need. Now, I prescribe that when you get this kid, you shouldn't arrest him. You may have to take him in custody, but you need to get him to a hospital. You need to get him to a hospital. That's what I am professing. So once we find out that they made this threat to shoot up a school or bomb the school like we had this morning on our first one to the school year, the second phase, we have to prove they had intent or they had planning. That's the second most important thing. And how do we do that, Linda? Where are we going to find a teen's most deepest, darkest secrets and planning? In their social media, right? So our second phase is when they make the threat. Now I show them how to execute a search warrant on the social media, Discord, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever they're using, Snapchat, TikTok. We will get their deepest, darkest secrets and plan because they're going to be talking to others about, hey, I got this gun, or hey, I'm going to do this. Hey, look at this gun I'm going to use in my shooting. These are the bombs that I'm making. So there's where we're going to find the deepest, darkest secrets and planning. If there has been planning and intent, then we go to the final phase, phase 3, which is a search warrant on their homes. So we're going to do a search warrant on their homes to obtain those weapons, to obtain those bomb-making materials that they have. Now, let's talk about, for 1 second, the Georgia shooting. If any of your audience wants to go on YouTube and look up Georgia school shooter body cam, there was a body cam from that shooter that the police went to go talk to this Colin Gray about him planning a school shooting. And then a year later, because the law enforcement agencies didn't know anything about cyber back then, or when they talked to him last year, had they gone in that house, they would have observed in his bedroom a shrine to Adam Lanza, who did Sandy Hook, and to Nicholas Cruz, who did Parkland. A shrine. Yes. So, and that's why the dad was arrested, because he had all these weapons freed willy-nilly that his son could have access to. Okay. And then a year later, he gets shot. 4 people get shot. So during this phase, out of the 42 we had last year, 11 of them had already had weapons they secured to do the shooting. Okay. Are many of them just spouting off with no intent? Yes. But you will never know what that intent is until you do the paperwork. And that is a search warrant on their social network. Every school shooter over the last 12 years, when confronted by law enforcement, had said, I am just kidding. And what I profess, if you have identified the student who made the threat, if you have seen the reels or the videos of them holding weapons, don't you dare go to that house without a search warrant. Okay? Because a kid holding a weapon, practicing weapons, shooting weapons, like with switches on Glocks and AR-15s and all this other stuff, when they're showing you videos that they have that, guess what? They just confessed. So I take my child exploitation experience. We can show 100% that when they did this reel or this video on their social networks, they were at that house, in their house with that weapon, because we traced the IP. When we trace the IP, we can 100% say that he was in that house holding that weapon on that date and time zone. So this program that I created takes child exploitation, the stuff that we did in child exploitation, and applies it to this threat. There is a famous doctor, Dr. Reed Malloy, who's the foremost expert when it comes to psychology, Reed Malloy, on school shootings. And he has found that when you look at leakage, you will find the most frequent proximal indicators of them to commit a school shooting. You can actually follow the pattern as the more aggressive they will become if not intercepted. That's what he professes. So we need to train students how to, the 5 things. We have to train staff, school staff, administration. Who are they? Your IT people, your social workers, your deans, your principals, your assistant principals, and superintendents. They are coming to the training along with local law enforcement, and I have to get them all on the same page. Like last year when I taught in Dallas, right? I had this guy, this SRO, sitting in the front, and as I'm teaching the class, he's shaking his head. He's going like this, he's shaking his head as I'm speaking. And I'm very upfront with my students, right? I say, bro, what are you shaking your head for? And he goes, dude, listen, my school district is so anti-police, they won't even let me look at the security cam footage because they say it's a FERPA violation. I'm like, are you kidding me? No. So that's a big failure. You have this divide that some ideological principal who doesn't want police in their schools won't tell them anything. Well, now there's something called the Claire Davis Safety Act that's sweeping through the nation. Claire Davis Safety Act that started in Colorado, where school administrators, if they hold on to information where a student is a danger to the community and to the school, if they don't tell law enforcement, they can be held civilly liable and their immunity is gone if a shooting happens. So let's talk about when these threats come in, right? So when threats come through social media or they come through their gaming platforms, that goes right to the FBI. All right. So let me show you what happens with the FBI. Just like local law enforcement, when you're an FBI agent, it doesn't mean you have cyber experience. Only unless you've been in ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, or what they used to call innocent images, or if you've been in cyber terrorism, cyber fraud, you would have the training to do these cases. If you've never been in a cyber job, you don't have that training. So here's what happens. And I asked 2 questions to my officers. I say, hey, there's a lot of experience in this room, guys. I have a question for you. Have you ever been assisting with a federal search warrant written by the U.S. Attorney's Office for a juvenile's home? And they all say no. Second question. Have you ever accompanied and assisted the FBI where they took a juvenile into custody? Nope. Why? Because there is no mechanism for juveniles in the federal system. We're dealing with that now, right? With DC. There's no mechanism for federal intervention. It's all local, right? So let's get back to this ECPA thing. So the ECPA says we can preserve data for 90 days. The first thing we can do is subpoena. The second thing we can do is search warrant. So in a search warrant, we can get everything on the account, like all their messages, all their pictures, all their videos. We can get all of it as long as we have a court order signed by a judge, which is called the search warrant. Now, the fourth thing that we can get is something called the exigent circumstance protocol. Exigent circumstance protocol. And what that says is that if death or great bodily harm is about to happen or happening now, the law enforcement agent can invoke exigent circumstance, and within a reasonable amount of time, which is usually within an hour, the social network can give you those 8 pieces of non-content related information within an hour. So I show my SROs and school officials the ECPA statute, and I said, when there's a threat to bomb your school or shoot up your school, you can invoke exigent circumstance and find out who that person is who made that threat within an hour or 2. And that's what happened this morning.
This didn't come out of nowhere. You mentioned that you could find so much of this on social media. Or let's talk about some other circumstance that you've been in. You know, you've stopped cases and you found there's a role for teachers, there's a role for parents, we talked about the role for other students. Talk to me about how we've got to come together about our efforts. When we see something that smells like fish, we have to report it. Where do teachers and parents come in?
So here's one of the biggest problems. There was a case that happened in Pembroke Pines, Florida, about 3 years ago. What I tell my students, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck in social media investigations, it's not a duck. It's not a duck until you've done this 3-step process. Preservation, exigent on the user ID. Once you get an IP, you do an exigent on the IP, and only then will you know. So let me tell you what happened in Pembroke Pines. Principal calls the SRO and says, one of our students just threatened to shoot up the school today. She's on the school bus. She's on her way to school. So the SRO meets the school bus. She gets the kid off the school bus, escorts her to her office and says, why did you threaten to shoot up the school today? 13-year-old girl. She goes, I didn't. What are you talking about? I didn't do that. She goes, well, is this your Instagram account? It looks like my Instagram account, but I didn't do it. Somebody must have hacked me. I didn't do it. You want to look through my phone? Go ahead. I don't care. I didn't do it. And so she goes, well, before I talk to you, because this is a felony now, I have to tell your parent that we're talking to you. So they call the mom. Mom comes down. They brief mom as to what's going on. Mom's like, oh, hell no. You're not talking to my daughter anymore without an attorney, and I'm taking her phone. You're not looking at that either. Takes her daughter out. So now this SRO is stuck with this, right? So she calls her boss and says, what do I do? Her boss says, I don't know. Let's call investigations. So investigations gets involved in a 3-way call, and they tell the investigation sergeant, are we allowed to swear or no?
You can do it. What? Yes.
Okay. So let me just tell you the real story.
Yes.
So what happened is the sergeant says, well, did she say it was her account? And she goes, well, it looked like her account. The sergeant says, fuck it, arrest her. So what I tell my law enforcement officers, if those words ever come out of your mouth in a law enforcement operation, fuck it, just do it. It'll never turn out good for you, ever. Ever. Because you're flying by the seat of your pants. So what does she do? She arrests her. She puts her in a youth home for 14 days.
Oh, no.
In Florida. And she's not the one who did it. You see, the new cyberbullying over the last 3 years with kids, If they don't like you, they will make a fake Instagram to make it look like your account and make threats from your account as it names you, right? So had this officer taken my class, she would have known if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, or walks like a duck, it's not a duck until I do that 3-step process.
Okay.
So I know 100% that's the kid who did it or that's not the kid who did it.
So is it just like everything else in life? Like I was always an early adopter of technology. I wrote a 300-page website for my dental practice in 2004. I mean, like I was always on the cutting edge. I was fixing teeth with computers in 2003. Sure. So I'm lucky that I'm kind of fearless, and it's got me in trouble sometimes jumping onto technology early. Oh my gosh, it costs you so much money if you turn out to be their beta tester. I have been their beta tester so many times. So anyway, okay. So is it back to the same story though, that the world is rushing forward with technology and we just don't have time in schools or police departments or dentist offices or wherever to keep up? Yeah.
So when you talk about cyber investigations, the first thing that comes to law enforcement's mind is child porn. And so they're not sending their officers to get this training, but almost every single crime that they report to comes back to a phone or social media. And if we're not training people how to do that, we're losing.
Right.
So these are the things. It's all about training.
If we set good intention or bad intention aside completely, it's really all about training. And frankly, Rich, that's why we're celebrating Detective Rich Wistocki here, folks, with the second interview, because that's what he's doing. I mean, there's not a single thing that all of us have all wrapped up. We all need to be trained in this or in that. And I sat at lunch today and I listened to a poor older couple talking to their doctor, who was their daughter, at lunch, and she was exasperated with their lack of technology and stuff. And I think there is some responsibility on the police officers, on teachers, on administrators to keep up with this and to seek out this knowledge.
Absolutely.
But if we just set blame aside, there is a clear way forward, and I want to spend the rest of this interview talking about this from a hopeful possibility standpoint. So let's take a break, and we come back. We're going to have you talk to us about signals that adults miss. I'm sure there's some of that happening.
Yes.
And sort of like the emotional weight. I've been in this position before. We once had a guy in our dental practice who we would not give him a prescription pain meds for he was his fourth visit. He had never gotten fixed what we told him to. And he said, I'm going to go out and kill somebody if you don't give me some pain meds. And, he was kind of a wild-eyed looking guy. And, we suited our front desk up with wasp spray just under their desk. We all went into go mode. But it was an emotional weight on me that I couldn't bear. The next day, I called the authorities and told them the whole story and so forth. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the successes and why, changing the odds, all that. So let's take a break. Sure. When we come back, we'll get to some possibilities and some hope. You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time or maybe even the emotional stamina to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new, more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness. Okay, we're back with Detective Rich Wistocki. He has another interview with me a couple months back that you must listen to if there are children in your lives at all, because it's about protecting children from cybercrime, which is it's mind blowing how much is happening right below underneath the noses of parents, and it's also mind blowing how little you actually need to know to stop it if you know the right things. And so that's how we're going to continue the conversation here too. Talk to us about the signals that adults miss.
Yeah. So when we look at other school shootings, let's take the Highland Park parade shooting that happened 3 years ago. And I've interviewed the detectives that handled that case, and they were students of mine. And so I don't blame the police department for missing it. I don't blame the school for missing it. I blame the people who were commenting on his YouTube channel that missed it, that would not. When this kid talked about weapons and talked about, same thing with Parkland. He talked about getting these weapons, shooting these weapons. In Parkland, he talked about, I'm going to be a professional school shooter in his YouTube channel. Well, nobody reported that. Yeah. So there's all kinds of warning signs, and no parent wants to feel that their child is going to commit a school shooting. Well, at the same time, if they're exhibiting mental health issues, they really need to lock up their weapons or get rid of them. So with the Highland Park shooting, the mom had kicked the husband and the kid out of their house because she found out that dad signed for his FOID, that dad got him an AR-15, and he had mental health issues. And
How old was that kid?
The kid was, I believe he was 20 when he did it. Oh. But he had mental health issues. Like, he was kicked out of school when he was a junior. They made him a creepy classroom in the basement where he practiced all his craft. All these people practice, so when you're seeing guns and knives and they're videoing themselves and doing this stuff, these are all warning signs. Like the guy in Georgia, when you have a shrine to Adam Lanza, that's a problem. So there's all these warning signs, and parents, they just bury their head in the sand. And especially when you have a child that's suffering from mental health, you especially have to be careful. You have to search their rooms. Well, you have to look at their social media and what they're talking about, because, even if you have slow learners or even kids on the spectrum, right? They are at most at risk, or they have different other mental health issues, that they are socially inept, and they find their playground is online or in chat rooms. And so they have to pay attention. You cannot take it lightly. You have to be searching their rooms. But the biggest red flag is the leakage. What is my kid posting about?
And that does come down to all of us, especially peers, is the leakage. Because so that's just ubiquitous throughout the whole thing. Nobody comes out of nowhere with it and does these things.
Correct. You look at Nashville, you look at Parkland, you look at Georgia, all of them. And I always post when it comes out, let the leakage begin. Somebody missed it, and sure enough, they missed it.
So how do we change the odds?
So that's a big problem. I spent the last 2 years sending about 200 emails to our country's senators and House representatives, 200 to their press people, to everyone. And I got one return from Dick Durbin, because I'm his constituent in Illinois. And you know what? He sent me a letter. Thank you for your service, detective, but it's not about what you're doing. It's all about gun control. He went on this big thing about gun control. And I'm like, I type back, he goes, you have missed the boat, sir. This is about the mental health of our children. And so I put it on my social media, the letter. Can you believe this? They think it's about gun control. It's about mental health. I have a solution to this school shooting problem, and nobody wants to listen. Well, about 2 weeks later, I get an email from his staff when they saw all my postings going out, right? And he wanted to have a meeting. I was like, cool, let's have a meeting. So I had some of my partners on. I had our regional office of educators on. We're going to have a podcast with Dick Turbin's team, right? Podcast goes on. There's a 20-year-old girl sitting in an office. I'm like, who are you? I said, how old are you? And she goes, I'm 20. I said, are you the freaking intern? He goes, yeah, you got to go through me to get to Dick Durbin. I was like, this is over. See ya. Click. And that is what frustrates me, because we have an answer to the problem, but nobody wants to listen to the answer. They all have their own agendas, right? It's gun control, gun control. It's not about gun control. It's about leakage and the mental health of our students. Once we capture that and train everybody, we're gonna be able to stop school shootings.
I think it's the very solution is the problem. It is so hard to raise your hand and point to a neighbor or a friend or,
Yes.
like, how does that actually work? Like, I'm imagining myself a 15-year-old. I'm terribly disturbed about what I see on somebody's social media that I'm connected to in some way. What, I walk into the principal's office, like, okay, I go up to the SRO, and how do I trust that SRO has been empowered to do something? And how do I know that he's going to do something responsible that doesn't make me a target?
Yes.
I think that
snitches get stitches, right?
That's right. Like, I don't know. This is like contemplating the edge of the universe for me.
Yeah. So when I go in schools and I teach the kids about reporting, I say, okay, so when I was a SWAT sniper, our protocol was, when we're stuck in a problem, we ask ourselves, what do I gain? What do I lose? What do I gain? What do I lose by going in that tree? What do I gain? What do I lose by going in that house and taking it over? What do I gain? What do I lose by going in that jungle gym, hiding in there, right? So I play the same game with my students. What do I gain? What do I lose by coming forward, right? So what do I gain by not coming forward? Well, I'll have the respect of my friend that I kept his secret. Well, what do you lose if you come forward? Well, people could get shot. My friend can get murdered. My friend can kill himself. I could avoid a massacre if I just came forward with the 5 pieces of evidence, right? So we need to have these conversations. Again, it's not enough to see something, say something. We got to show kids how to say something. What is important to report, to say, hey, I saw this kid said, don't come to school tomorrow because I'm bringing my pipes to school. If you don't want to get hurt, don't come to school tomorrow. And I found that I know this kid's kind of weird, and I just thought somebody should know because I didn't want to have that on my conscience. I have to tell somebody. So at that point, boom, we need to know that our principals, our deans, our SROs are all trained up. Okay, sit down. Give me these 5 things right now. And while they're giving the 5 things, the SRO is going to go in a portal, do the preservation, do the exigent circumstance, and find out everything about this kid right there.
All right. But does it really come down to the fact that I don't know if my local high school knows any of these things? And I don't know, when my kids attended there, they were forthright kids. They were brave. Mm-hmm. If they saw something, I think they would have at least mentioned it to us at the dinner table or taken us aside and said, this is making me uncomfortable. I wouldn't have known any of those things to do. I would have done it wrong, probably, just as you say. So does it really come down to Rich? You can't train every single school administrator and SRO in the whole country. Like, how do we okay. How do we disseminate this? I mean,
so it's got to be scalable, right?
It's got to be scalable.
Yeah. So I have to do as many podcasts like this to reach so many people. I have to send out my videos, speak at conferences all over the country. That's how I get it. So every single year, there's 12 weeks in the summer, right? I am in a different state every week. sending this message out to people who will hear it.
Okay. Tell me a couple of success
And that's why
stories.
I want to get on a broader scale. So everybody, you said it, everybody needs to know this. So, I also want to reach out to, Sean Ryan, Joe Rogan. I have to get out to the masses that we can stop this, but again, just like politicians, I send stuff to their producers and they don't respond. So, I say, I hit them on their social media. I said, look, guys, I have a way to stop school shootings. And they never respond. So I just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep on driving my bus, picking up as many people as I can.
Yeah. And that's, well, you've already got me on board. I'm like inching my way to the front seat.
Yeah. Right.
Because I think I said on the last one, like, I don't need another project, but I got to figure out how to help you write a book, a manual.
I appreciate it.
I did write my own book, and it's called Happiness is an Option. It was written before the pandemic, right at the beginning, the first months of the pandemic. And it was written when the Goodness Exchange was called Ever Widening Circles, but nobody could remember that name, so we changed it. But otherwise, it's the story of celebrating what's right with the world and how you can tailor your the news that slips into your life and the things that are preying on your mind, how you can tailor your incoming. So check out Happiness is an Option if you want a book that gives you but I still think that's got to be part of the dissemination of knowledge here, is that I don't know how much else you can do. You can't literally show up in front of every single high school. And, if you get this wrong, if some place gets any of these steps, there's too many steps in this whole thing that can go wrong. And then we don't find the perpetrators, or that the ones that we do mess up with, they just get madder and do something even crazier.
And they continue to plan and plot.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about the human why. You saved so many kids and in both parts of this equation. What keeps you going? Like, talk to us about the things that make you hopeful, because I know that there's days when this has been a long slog for me for 12 years in a world that can't stop talking about the negative noise. Not nearly enough people visit the Goodness Exchange or this podcast, even though everyone says they're tired of the negative noise. Like, what keeps you going? I get emails from people all the time that keep me going. How about you? Like, talk to us about what keeps you hopeful and possible.
God has given me an amazing talent to teach.
Yeah.
And ever since I was 12 years old, I've been in martial art, and I ran 3 taekwondo schools. So my ability to teach anyone that's where it comes from. And my passion and my conviction is to save as many kids as I possibly can. I've arrested over 300 predators in my career, and I can't stop. So now what I want to do, I want to teach others on what I did. So now I can even cast wider, deeper, longer nets and teach. Let me give you an example of what I'm so proud of. Before my students, my SROs, take my class, and I've gotten like 4 emails from 4 different SROs that said the same thing. He goes, Rich, before I took your class, I would just tell kids for sexting and sextortion, just report to social network. Until I took your class, you opened my eyes that student in front of me, they're just one of 20 kids in line being affected by that same predator. And if I don't do anything, if I don't take that report, I'm letting that predator get away with affecting my kids. And this is the passion and my conviction that I try to instill in my SROs. And when they take my class and then they report back to me, oh my God, I can't believe how many times I just told them to go report to the social network because I didn't want to take a report. But now that I use your tools and I take all the information, I find out who the bad guy is myself, and I find out where the bad guy is, and no matter where they're at in the United States, I can reach out and give it to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and they can do a search warrant on the work that I did. I'm saving 10, 12 kids at a time, Rich. And that's just from learning your tools. And when I hear that, Linda, I'm like, God is great. And I can, and I had a dream about 6 months ago, and God came to me in a dream, I think. And I had this non-for-profit call me and say, "Hey, we'd like you to do your 2-hour presentation from our parents." I was like, "All right, let me send you a contract and invoice." He goes, "Oh, you're going to charge us?" And I'm like, "Well, do you go to work for free?" And it was, "Well, we're a church," and I'm like, "Well, I have things to do too." So I laid my head down at night, and it was bothering me that I said no, that I wasn't going to do it. And I think God came to me and told me, "You can never say no. You can never say no."
This wasn't in a dream. This really happened. A church wanted you to do the whole thing and not be charging for it. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Oh,
so
and
never say no.
Okay.
So
okay. I have some questions about that, because I don't know where we got along in a world where we said everybody who does something good for others has to do it for free. I don't know how we came to that world.
Yeah. Well, then I had this dream. So I called the pastor back and I said, "Look, I had this dream last night." And he goes, "So what are you saying?" I said, "I'll do it for free." So I did it. And guess who was there? The one of the CEOs in Oak Brook from McDonald's Corporation. He was them. So I do McDonald's safety meeting every year, and they pay me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I totally see that. That's the way I've run my business.
The Lord came to me and said,
as well,
never say no. If somebody wants the gifts that I bestowed upon you,
yes,
Rich, you need to spread the word. That's how I interpret my vision.
I love it.
My dream.
Yeah.
And so I never say no now.
I love it. Yeah. And I think that goes out with, I mentioned that the original name for this website and this whole project was Ever Widening Circles. Mm-hmm. I mean, without the God part of the equation, I'm very spiritual, but not as religious as you are. And mm-hmm. I just found that the world works that way. Everything goes out in ever widening circles. Yeah. And if you decide to put out good in the world, you never know what shores those will land on.
Yeah. I am so blessed, Linda. I am so blessed. Lovely. Every morning I do my co-plunge, and at 39 degrees for 7 minutes. Every morning I do that.
You do.
And it takes me 7 minutes to say my rosary. And I pray and I pray and I pray. Let this be a productive day. Let my boys be safe in their jobs, because I have a firefighter and a police officer. Let my boys make good decisions.
Your sons are police officer and firefighters.
One of my sons is a police officer, and the other son's a firefighter. And it's just like, when you're doing it, you don't worry because it's just a job. But when your boys do it, it's like I worry about them all the time. Yeah.
Okay. So, as we wrap up here, I think what I'm leaving this interview with is an even greater commitment to help you get some of this down in writing.
I appreciate it.
And we can talk about that at another time, because I have learned to make the most of technology in writing so that you can actually apply your heart and your critical thinking to the writing. And let technology do a lot of the just mundane stuff. And that's what keeps people like you and I from writing all our insights, is all the mundane stuff that has to be done along with the critical thinking. So we can get through that. But okay. So what we can all do next is we can call our local school. We can say, hey, there's this guy that is stopping school shootings. And then what? What do you want people to know to be able to get the schools?
So all they need to do is go to mycybersafeschool.com.
mycybersafeschool.com.
School.com. mycybersafeschool.com. And you go to the page, and there's a menu there. And you just tell me what you want to do. And there's law enforcement, there's school SRO training in there. And then it'll go right to me, and then we can start the process. Okay. That's really it.
Okay.
There's a couple things where people can go if they want a background on it. So again, I told you how I'm fearful of writing a book. So I published an article called Caliber Press, We Can Stop School Shootings. It's a law enforcement publication. It's about a 10-page thing that I did. And what happened was NBC Chicago Investigates picked it up. They're like, who is this retired detective guy thinking that he's going to stop school shootings? Is he a little crazy? And so they thought they were going to make a story out of it. So they followed my social media. They went on my LinkedIn. They even showed up at one of my presentations at a police department. I said, you can't come in here. These people need permission for you to film them. He says, well, what about the chief? I said, well, I'll talk to the chief, but I can't promise you anything. Because on my website, you can on BeSureConsulting.com, like in-person presentations, they can see where I'm going to be presenting. And so they showed up. And so, like the good chiefs say, well, if you interview me, I'll let you do the story. So that's what happened. The chief was a good friend of mine. And so if you Google NBC investigates Detective Wistocki, they investigated my claims and they interviewed other SROs that have used my tools. And I came out smelling like a rose on how important it is to follow the leakage and do something about that mental health aspect in order to stop school shootings.
Well, I'll tell you, that's how cynical our world has become. And that's one of the reasons I do the Goodness Exchange and I do the podcast is because we all think when we do run into something that's feels too good to be true, like somebody who's actually knows the things and is giving out this knowledge as fast as you can. We tend to think, oh, there's got to be a catch, or oh, there's, So I'm glad you added that to the end of this podcast. I will give people a link to that as well.
Awesome.
Okay, so as we did in the last one, I always wrap up with asking folks to tell us something they really wish people knew. Like if you ask me what I really wish people knew and I had 30 seconds, I'd say your click is a vote. Every time you click on something, you're saying yes to more of that. So if you click on the crazy stuff, we're all going to get more crazy stuff.
Especially the AI algorithms will prove that to you.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's a vote. Your click is a yes, please, more of that. Yes, okay, so I tell people, don't click on crazy. Don't click on anything violent. Don't. And because content creators are not going to produce stuff we won't click on. All right. So that's my little, I really wish people knew. What do you really wish people knew related to this whole school shooting concept?
I wish that they would take students seriously when they espouse hateful messages. We need to pay attention to what our kids are posting. That's my biggest concern is that sometimes they blow it off. Sometimes kids end up being sextorted. And we have to have an open technology talk, like we said in the last one. We have to have an open technology talk, and we have to impose the golden ticket.
All right, you will have to go listen to that episode. Hang on. I'm going to go over to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast and find out what episode that is, so people can go right over there because you have to know about the golden ticket. And that episode is episode 221. Concerned about children's cyber safety? We're on the case with Detective Rich Wistocki, episode 221 of the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. Go over there. That golden ticket is something that I, without knowing it, I used when I was a young teenager with my parents, and it worked out really good. And my kids, without having something like that, did call us a couple times when they got themselves in too deep. So if for no other reason, folks, go listen to that episode so you can know about the golden ticket, because it is a prize-winning way to relate to young adults, young kids. Yeah. Okay, Rich, this has been fantastic. I want everybody to take this to heart. I really know Detective Rich Wistocki now. He and I have spent hours together online, and I visit Chicago all the time. I've got nieces and nephews there. I was just in Southern Illinois just a couple weeks ago. So someday I'm taking you out to lunch, mister, if you're ever there. Yes. I think that Rich is one of those people in this world that is sending out ever-widening circles of goodness and progress. And as much as we hear about the negative noise in the world, Rich allows us to celebrate what's right with the world. So thank you so much for joining us again, Rich. Okay. All right. So have a great day, everyone.
Have a blessed day.
All right.